They talking all of this madness, talking all of this madness, talking all of this madness. They talking all of this madness, talking all of this madness, talking all of this madness. They talking all of
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Matt Madness Unsanctioned. My name is Ron Pashery, columnist for TJRWrestling.net. I'm here once again with friends of the show, Joe Lafferty and Paul Carboni. Welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves the last time.
A little bit.
How about you, Joe?
It was great.
Good.
Sorry.
Yeah, hopefully anybody out there enjoyed listening to us for the first time. I'm glad to have you guys back. It was a long time in the making getting you guys here. It's good to have you back for the second time. So, I have one thing I want to mention. You mentioned something the last time we were here that we didn't really touch on, that I feel like I've been talking about a lot recently, and I don't think you're going to like it.
Me?
Yes. Actually, before we get started, there is something I'd like to point out now that I'm looking at the two of you. First, I'd like to introduce one of the greatest t-shirts I've ever seen over there, the I'm Too Sexy for This Crowd.
You gotta be a real
T-shirt.
fan to get this joke. A real fan.
Should I tell them what it's based on? Do you want to tell them?
No, you can tell them.
Based on the WrestleMania 8 entrance coat from HBK, Shawn Michaels.
He walked out like this.
A beautiful promotion for BeneathTheMat.com. And then I'd like to also introduce Joey Laugh's shirt over here, which that's one of the greatest t-shirts I've ever seen.
But, Ron,
the greatest.
It pales in comparison. I mean, stand up. That is Delco's finest.
The Mount Rushmore of cats with the fireworks could possibly be on the 4th of July. I would have been remiss to not mention those two shirts right off the bat. But back to what I think you're not going to like. You might, because you brought it up. The Miz.
Wow.
Intercontinental Champion on SmackDown for whatever it was, 180-something days, half of a year. Just lost it to Dolph Ziggler at No Mercy in a great match, maybe arguably the best match The Miz has ever been in. I thought that was an awesome match. Great storyline from both guys, and I'm not the biggest Ziggler guy because he's gotten very boring over the last few years as a babyface. The Miz, to me, is a true heel in that smart fans who usually will like a heel for being good at being a heel will hate the guy. And that he gets like legitimate heat, legitimately booed, legitimately reviled by the fans in the crowd. You hate The Miz.
Well, I'll go first.
Okay.
You will?
I don't like his in-ring work.
Right. Which is understandable.
And I always go back to his main event with Cena at Mania. Paul always said to me one of the reasons when he talks about Triple H being as good as he was, that he was the only heel that brought a title into Mania and then left. Miz was the second. There's a spot in that match, I think Cena was going for a shoulder block or Miz was supposed to do. It was a botched move, a botched spot, and when I look at that, that should not have been the main event at WrestleMania. I am not as big of a CM Punk mark as you would think. Mm-hmm. CM Punk should have been in the main event with Cena that year. And that was all in that 3-year span. It was all about Cena and The Rock. It all, going back to the infamous pipe bomb that I spoke about in our previous episode. I never liked his in-ring work. I will be happy to admit that the last two matches with Ziggler have been wonderful. They really have been great. The pacing that you've talked about in our previous show, I enjoyed the pacing, the psychology.
To whom do you attribute it more, Ziggler or Miz?
I don't know. But I will tell you, it probably doesn't hurt that they're friends.
Right.
And I could see that they enjoyed working with each other.
Sure.
They've done it a million times. But those last two matches on the pay-per-views have been very, very, very good. And much better than Ziggler and Ambrose, his last feud.
Yeah.
So I will give him credit. This run has been good. But let's not forget the snooze fest with Apollo.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Right. And didn't we call him Apollo Creed before on this show? Mm-hmm. I still hope on Rocky IV, he doesn't die every time I watch that show.
That's not Miz's fault.
The Apollo Crews match?
And I like him. He's all right, Apollo Crews, but he's shown me nothing. Back to the Miz. This has been, when I tell you this has been a subject of conversation between my best friend and myself. Literally,
the guy who stopped watching Raw?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's an encyclopedia of wrestling.
Okay.
When I tell you this has been a topic of conversation for at least the past 4 or 5 years, I'm not exaggerating every time I see him. The run-up to Miz's title win in 2010 was fantastic. It was awesome. It was pure WWE marketing. You could see it coming a mile away. The fans hated him. The smarts loved him. I went to the Raw the week after he won it. He faced Lawler in a title match, in the ladder match in Philadelphia. And the crowd was electric. I don't think that he should have been in the main event at WrestleMania. Incidentally, I got married that year, and my buddy, who should have been putting all his money towards me, flew down and saw it. And he said that WrestleMania, he said the crowd was awesome. He said the intro video, and he loved it. He had no problem with Miz main eventing. I see your point.
His intro video,
that video
and the bubbles and the stuff with MTV is great. I don't like his in-ring work.
But let me tell you this. That was not as apparent 5 and 6 years ago on his way up and at the top. The Miz is a victim, I should say, of WWE wishy-washy booking. He took all the time off for the movies. He did this, that, and the other thing. I know he came back after one of the movies. It was like his first match back. Somebody did a plancha. I want to say it was R-Truth. And Miz missed him, dropped him. And I know there was a ton of heat on him. Like, the guy, Truth, I think he was all right. And that one, you know what? It was like Billy Gunn all over again. Because Billy Gunn got a bad reputation 10 years ago for dropping Chris Benoit coming back after shoulder surgery. And it, like, followed him. I think that Miz got caught in the middle. That ultra big mid-card that WWE has that I've talked about. I don't think he can be blamed. I think he's tried really, really hard to get out of it. And oh my goodness, Ron, as I say this, I spoke to you before last show. I actually remember what I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
But we talk about that brass ring and that people wanted to grab, and Stone Cold's always calling the younger people out, and we all know that it's fictitious. Miz has actually tried to do stuff, and he just got stuck. I think he was great for the belt. I think the belt was great for him. I see your point, but I think that the maligning of him is a bit misplaced. Now, my buddy, again, who traveled down, he will go as far as to say that Miz is in his top 5 of all time.
Wow. I've never heard anybody go that far.
And this is a very educated, hey, Ron, none of the jabrons you've had on this show can hold a candle to this guy. I'm going to put that out there. This guy knows his stuff. And I've said to him, really, that's a high ranking. Like, talk about Rushmores.
Yeah.
And he just think that Miz has it. Say what you will. I've been in that boat. Miz ebbs and flows. I think right now he's flowing. I think he's doing well. But I think when you catch him in a bad spot, I think the reintroduction of Maurice, I'm not
wonderful.
I'm not kicking her out of bed for eating crackers. That's for sure. But yeah, it adds to the image.
Yes.
I think he's got a natural heel heat. I remember they called him Frog Face with all these years back. I think he's fine. Do you think that he's a worthy champion? And not in the vein of our classic Intercontinental title holders, but do you think he's a worthy champion? Do you think he's good with the belt, for the belt?
Which belt?
The IC.
Yes.
Do you think that he was a viable world champion when he had the belt 5 and 6 years ago? I'm not talking 2016 Miz.
No.
Totally disagree with you. I think he made for great TV. I think, Ron, you asked last time, who do we like to watch? 2010, 2011 Miz, I was hooked. I was watching. And I think a lot of people were. That's why they put the belt on him. It's one of the few times they listen to fans.
I'm glad that you said that, because I had a hiatus in my WWE fandom where I just stopped. That was during it. What did you love so much about The Miz in his championship?
It was new. It was real. It was fresh. It was that modern-day Nature Boy image. You like seeing the guys with the flashy attire. He reinvented his look. I think everything worked. The Miz, who was used to wear, the fedora and the hat and the gloves and would come out and do the thing on the entrance, drove me crazy. But they were growing pains. He was learning. Oddly, he and John Morrison really got over as that tag team. I liked them both, but not as a tag team. He won me over, and I am a tough crowd to win over. He's lost me, and he's won me back.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, I see validity to your point, but I don't see how you can't not have liked his initial world title run. And it is crazy how far he dropped. And again, I don't blame him. I blame WWE booking and marketing.
Some of those matches that he had during that title run with Ron Killings on his team. Ron Killings, you're going to book me in a match against Ron Killings?
And that was a very low buy rate for that Survivor Series, even with The Rock. You're right.
But some of those matches were better than the Mania main event. He was in the spotlight, and I didn't like that match.
Okay, but granted, you're a move guy. You're one of those dudes. Was it because of the story leading up, the story in the match, or like the lack of moves in the match? Because him and Cena,
yes,
it's not going to be Malenko Guerrero.
Right.
Is that why you didn't like it?
We talked about on our last show how much all three of us liked the Cena Open.
Right.
And what Cena did with younger performers. The matches that he put on and the matches that he continues to put on. I've tried to go back to watch the Miz match like this, and I don't.
I can see that. I can honestly see that. I don't think it was a great main event. Again, my good friend would probably disagree.
Yeah. Well, if he's in his
He's
top
biased.
five.
He's biased. But again, and this is another topic for a different day, when you experience something live, it totally colors your perception of that match.
You've talked about that on your
And,
I definitely.
and again, ECW Arena, I mean, there's 1,200 people there.
2,300.
Don't even. You know,
I've yelled at the car radio when he's called it that.
It is the ECW Arena. If you're a wrestling fan, you call it the 2300 Arena. I know exactly when you started following. You probably wear flannel. You probably drink Pabst Blue Ribbon. You wear a fedora and you have a beard. You are a hipster wrestling fan and you are fake. It's the ECW Arena.
Swanson and Rittner.
But what's it known for? It's known for the atmosphere, right? And I think that maybe colored his perception. I don't know. I remember sitting at home thinking, like, The Miz is in the main event at WrestleMania. And I get it. But he was a viable world champion. Maybe they should have not had him in the last match at Mania. I don't know. I can see both points. But right now, I think he's firing on all cylinders, and good for him.
Yeah, because I could remember talking about Ziggler and feeling like that whole I'm going to try real hard and I came up short again. I'm in a slump. It's just boring. There's nothing interesting about
I'm
it.
over Dolph. They've done him in.
Yeah, they have. And that's where I was. Like, I don't need to see him, whatever. But I looked forward to those two matches between those two guys. And I think a lot of the credit goes to Miz for he actually made you feel sympathy for a guy who I was kind of done feeling sympathy for.
Ron, incidentally, if you do want to go back to fill in that gap in your fandom, when The Miz was champion, he wore the best clothes. And my buddy, who runs this website, interviewed him, and at my behest, asked him, where do you get your clothes? These great He was coming out with these crazy, obnoxious suits that were so bad they were good in wrestling parlance. Kind of like your shirt.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he carried himself like a champion. I mean, he was wearing suits with hoodies, which I know, makes your blood run cold. But, I mean, it was a little thing. I don't know. He won me over. It. We'll see where he goes. He's an anomaly.
Now, did he win you over prior to winning the championship, or it was during his
It was that
reign?
run. You could smell it happening. He was getting over. It was very slow and pronounced, and the WWE let it happen naturally. He wasn't forced down our throats. It wasn't like a Roman Reigns situation. And I think it's because he was such a despised heel. I think that was different, too. But I remember I was sitting second row when he fought Lawler in that ladder match, and there was great heat in the building. It was really good. And Jerry Lawler, I mean, the guy has had a good match since the 70s. I mean, I know people disagree with me. I'm being facetious. But it was a really good pro wrestling style match. There were no crazy moves. It was, drop the arm 2 times and the slow climb up the ladder. It was all the stuff that we've come to know and love. And it worked.
So you're in on The Miz right now, currently where we stand.
Ask me in 6 months.
Yeah, you can get behind the character. It's more so what he's doing in the ring than what he's doing.
And the last 2 matches have been great.
And the other thing that I think is important is he left the Intercontinental Championship in a better position than when he won it. Like, he brought it to
He
a
elevated
better
it.
level.
Absolutely.
I think.
It's that image thing. Maybe Maurice did it. Let's give it a go.
And the fact that Ziggler put his career on the line for that title, which makes that mean even more.
Now, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't going to pay off that stipulation. Let's just be honest. They were. To WWE's credit, they actually sent out advertising to TV and said that they were going to do a tribute to Ziggler's career and things like that, which I thought was phenomenal in retrospect. They weren't paying that stipulation off. They would have had him come back as a janitor or some kind of angle. I did tune in, though, to see how they were going to pay it off or pull the rug out from under us. So maybe they won.
They may
after
have.
all.
Now, you mentioned how organic it was that The Miz got over in this run. And I think we talked about Cena. We haven't talked about Roman Reigns. I think one of the things that people resent Cena or Roman Reigns for is the idea that it's not organic, that they're forcing it, which in some cases is true. Do you think they're allowing enough things to happen organically in WWE these days? Or do you think everything they're doing is like, we see this happening and this is what we're going to do? I almost went into a Vince voice there. I tried to avoid it.
It's everything Vince wants. He has the final say. The organic piece, I go back to Daniel Bryan. They booked the Royal Rumble, in my opinion, incorrectly. And then the outcry by us won him the title.
Yeah.
Batista was supposed to win the belt. He was in a James Bond movie, Guardians of the Galaxy. Vince and Paul wanted to have their friend with the title.
What is this Paul stuff? Is he in your cell phone as Paul? Do you know how maddening that is? Call him Paul to his face. I dare you. Paul.
Would you have called him Paul if we met up with him at the Hilton after NXT?
No. He would have asked for an autograph.
I might not like him, but I'm not stupid.
Ron.
Yes.
It's a dumb question. You know that. You know the
is.
answer to it. They're so scripted and homogenized and da-da-da-da-da. No, this is a company that is going to, for the third year in a row, force Reigns down our throats for the main event at WrestleMania. It's almost become a spectacle in that you put your wrestling fandom aside so you can kind of be like, let's watch the cluster that's going to ensue.
I disagree with that.
It's a shame to be wrong, but go ahead.
The main event this year at WrestleMania is going to be Brock Lesnar against The Rock.
You feel confident about that?
Yes.
I'll bet you a mortgage payment that doesn't happen.
Nope.
Right.
Well, on the subject of Roman Reigns, I was, a year ago, I guess, kind of soured on Reigns. Over the course of the last probably 6 to 7 months, I've kind of come around on him. There's stuff they do with him that I don't like.
Because they've simmered down?
They've simmered down, for one. He's not doing as much of the silly, jokey stuff as he was doing before, where he's trying to be the funny guy.
Trying to be Cena. They were booking him in the vein of Cena.
Which did not work for him. That's
right.
not who he is. But also, he won me over with the idea that almost every pay-per-view match he was having was really good.
Sure.
And he was not getting the credit for it. He's still getting chance if you can't wrestle. And it's like, is he Sami Zayn? No.
We talked about those fans. That makes no sense.
Yeah. Now, I know you... Did you always like Reigns, or did you kind of veer away and then get steered back towards him?
I've always liked him. I think his matches are good. I think the mistake that Vince made was breaking up the Shield too soon.
Way too soon.
The Horsemen had different iterations, but the Horsemen kept going. People fought, people left, people came in. The Shield, and I think one of your favorite topics is Bray Wyatt. Mm-hmm. They broke that up too soon. Aaron doesn't like Wyatt's in-ring work, but the Wyatts in the Shield, some of those matches were very good.
Yeah.
And during that period, that's when all the fans, everybody out there, was cheering for Reigns. Reigns was arguably their favorite, who got the hot tag in those matches. I love his drive-by leg drop that he does. He jumps over the ropes. A big guy like that.
Do you like his shape up? His shape up.
Yeah, beautiful.
Roman, if ever you see this, if you're on national TV every week, get the fresh cut, brother. I know that you have a stylist backstage. You can't come over with like 3 or 4 days of growth. You're a national TV star. Drives me crazy. and Seth Rollins with the underneck hair. But I digress. So you like all that about Roman Reigns, huh? How about his ring attire? He looks like he's gonna go enter a tenement house.
That's one of the reasons.
Jacket.
That's one of the reasons why people don't like Cena. Also,
Roman Reigns, I think, needs an overhaul a bit, and it doesn't need to be drastic, but something even as simple as wearing wrestling gear that we've come to see in our main eventers.
he did that at NXT, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he
He wore
did.
trunks.
Yeah.
And I do remember the one time that he had his gear ripped off on Raw. It was readily apparent that he was covering up his midsection, and it's like, does he hide
So
behind
he was
it?
not as chiseled as we would be led to believe.
He's a big Samoan. We don't expect him to be. I mean, the Rock is 1 in a million, but I think that he is a product of bad WWE marketing, almost like The Miz, or branding, we'll say, since that's their magic term. He can work. He can talk. He just needs to fit. You know, I've had this kind of like thing in my head that he needs to vanish from WWE. He needs to vanish from WWE and show up at ROH Final Battle. And you know what? You want him over with the smart fan base? They're going to cheer him until the cows come home.
Yeah.
If WWE was smart and they would use Ring of Honor, farm him out like they used to do with Al Snow and those guys with ECW. Get him over and then send him back. And then your vociferous 18 to 35 demographic, Roman. We're not that smart, and Vince knows this. Like, just do something new if you're going to really pick him to be your next John Cena.
Yeah.
He may not be ready for WrestleMania in 2017, but by 2018, there's your boy.
2 things. First, you are the first person to ever use the word vociferous on the Matt Madness podcast.
I have a master's degree in stuff, Ron.
I got to put you over for that. The other thing is, you mentioned his ring gear, his look. The Shield breaks up. Seth Rollins goes with the Authority. He comes out with new ring gear. Dean Ambrose eventually comes out in the wife beater and jeans.
Terrible.
It's awful, but it's different.
It's also why he's been treading water, too, I'm telling you.
But Roman comes out with the Shield music, wearing the Shield gear. It's like he got kind of stuck behind when the other 2 guys went their separate ways. And he's just kind of stuck in the past.
I never thought of that.
Or did he get stuck? He was the one... He was the biggest star of the Shield during that run.
He was. But
he got the hot tag.
To me,
Rollins was jumping off the Titantron or whatever, but he got the...
Another similarity between Reigns and Cena, and hopefully we can change the subject.
Yeah.
John Cena got over wearing Mitchell and S jerseys, cutting these borderline inappropriate raps.
They were inappropriate.
And they were awesome. And WWE said, ooh, let's make him a face.
Yeah.
And they sapped out all of his edge.
And can you give Big Show your famous move?
What is that? Huh?
After he was cutting all those promos and doing all his raps, they saw how strong he was too, and Vince saw that he could lift up a big guy and gave him the belt at Mania.
The hell does that have to do with anything? He was getting the belt anyway. You can see that coming.
Yeah, next topic.
Don't cut me off. Roman Reigns is in the same boat. He did when the fans over. And I remember, like, he really was, the fans were solidly behind him. Mm-hmm. But as soon as they get their little fingers into the ministrations of the character, it's the end of it. Just let it happen. And it's part of the problem with the TV product.
Yeah, which they just don't allow it to happen. They put these guys in a box and they can't come out. I hate when I can see a guy reading a promo.
Their eyes move.
Like when I can see the eyes moving, or I can see he's looking like where he's not supposed to be. It's awful, and it drives me crazy.
It's a problem. It is a problem.
It is. I actually want to go to, we have a listener question from Mr. Wednesday Night Live, ALO Aaron Lloyd, our resident European champion, one of the famed co-hosts. First, it's the second time he's asking a question. And I don't know who wants to take it first. What is your favorite Triple H match?
I can do this one.
Okay.
December 27, 2003, Monday Night Raw. He had a 5-star match with Shawn Michaels. Now, you're not going to give it 5 stars because the end was just schmaz. Bischoff came in, but that match was another one that was saved on the DVR forever. He had his dancing boots on that night. Yeah, until I moved, and then I had to get a new DVR.
Oh.
And I tried in vain to see if I could save it, and Comcast wouldn't let me. Stupid Comcast.
Yeah, they're the worst. How about you?
My favorite Triple H match.
Do you have one? First of all?
I do.
Okay.
I do. And he's had plenty of good matches, absolutely, that I have enjoyed. My favorite match is him and Stone Cold against Jericho and Benoit.
You have mentioned that before.
Yeah.
Is that a Raw match?
May 23rd, 2001, San Jose. It was.
And when he tore both quads, but then still took
he tore one quad. Vince
tore both.
Yeah.
And then yelled at Batista and Cena for going over the
Which
top
was
rope.
phenomenal. And he was sitting there with his legs out. That was really funny. He was not in the power position. He was looking up. That's a great match, a good favorite match to have. And again, especially when you think about the pain he must have been in to take the walls. And the match leading up to it, do you remember anything about it significantly, or do you just remember like the famous part where he got hurt?
I've watched the match within the last year.
Did it hold up?
Yeah, it does.
Wow.
There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of back and forth. It's a hot crowd. It's a great match.
I need to check that out. Ron, do you think we've stalled enough for you to think about in the Rolodex of your mind?
What my favorite match is?
Favorite Hunter match.
So mine, I may get a little heat for this, but mine is, we've talked a lot about like feeling. The ladder match with The Rock at SummerSlam 98. And it may not even be so much about the match. Now that Intercontinental feud was built for a long time. The Nation and DX against each other all that time. And you would have some personal memories of this. Living down the shore in Sea Isle City that summer. Went away to school in Williamsport, PA, so I was, 4 or 5 hours away from all my friends. It was the first pay-per-view when I was away at school, and watching that match, like I remember the first time not feeling homesick. It was almost like
that's an
I was
awesome
with my
story.
friends.
I love that story.
So and I'll anytime I watch that, like I have that feeling of like I was with my friends every day for 3 months, and now I'm not with them. And 3 weeks later, I'm watching this match, and I'm like, this is the first time I don't feel homesick. And it was. I also like the SummerSlam match with Michaels, but that's probably more because of Michaels coming back than anything else. But we veered a little bit towards Triple H. There's been some conflict between you and one of our co-hosts about Triple H.
And I have conflict with Paul.
And yes,
also, yes,
conflict with Paul as well on Triple H. So I like Triple H, and I'm a fan of a lot of what he's doing behind the scenes now. I'm not a huge Triple H fan as far as the wrestler or whatever, but I give him a lot of credit. He was relevant for a long time. So I know people on the show have heard a little bit from you. I want to get Paul's take on Triple H before we turn it over to you.
I think that Triple H is the Arnold Schwarzenegger of pro wrestling. I think he's done everything great that can be done. And if you think about it, Arnold Schwarzenegger is synonymous with the entire culture of physical fitness. All right, so he had the greatest body in the world at one time, was married to a gorgeous, hot, beautiful chick. He had political power, he had fame, he had money. Arnold had everything that any guy has ever wanted. Okay? Triple H has done the same thing. When you think about it as a child, what kind of pro wrestler you want to be, it's going to be like one of two things. It's going to be the suave, debonair, nature boy type, which Triple H did in Evolution. He came out in the suits and the long hair and the sunglasses. And then he was like, oh, I'm a big guy. I want to be an ass kicker. Came out in leather jackets with the wet hair and the jacked up physique. All right. So he's done every image that you've done with your WWF pillow buddies as a child. Okay? I think that when Triple H puts his dancing shoes on, he can work his face off. He is a very good in-ring wrestler. Now, I think that a lot of the resentment towards him is holdover from that 2003 to 2005-ish point where, there was Evolution and he was constantly going over, he undercut Eugene and that whole storyline and things like that. I get it. But has there ever been a booker who didn't put themselves over to the nth degree? I mean, hello, Dusty Rhodes gets all this credit. Yeah, because he had the book in Florida for all those years. I don't know. He's one of Vince's disciples, so you can see Vince's handprints in some of his things. I've got no problem with Triple H. He put himself over quite a bit, sure, but you would have too. I think the only big problem I had with the Triple H going over thing and the internet wrestling community who drive me up a wall to begin with, when he beat Booker at WrestleMania, I kind of felt that there's a term in wrestling, you got to show your ass. And he never did that. So my feeling was, he's so dominant in the lead-in. Booker's going to squash him. When Booker didn't win, I kind of felt a little yeesh. There were some racial overtones in that build-up, and it was kind of like, how are they going to pay this off? And they needed to show Booker as, you know, the vilified, you know, minority getting his comeuppance, and he didn't. Beyond that, who cares? The dude has great hair, the best theme song ever. Like, his theme song came on my iPod today. I was squatting. Oh, wow. The weights seem to go up a lot easier when you just imagine yourself doing the spritz. There's not a person listening that hasn't, when nobody's looking, done the spritz, whether it's in the pool, in the shower, or something. You've all done it, and you all envy him. And like Arnold, he's married to a gorgeous girl, has lots of power and money. I thought that when we saw the resurgence of tag team wrestling over the last few years, that was his handprints. He said that he loves, you know, tag team wrestling. I've got no problem with him. Anything that's residual, people need to get over themselves. He's going to come back for WrestleMania. He's going to get his payday, and then he's going to lie dormant for a year. So what? It's a fringe benefit of marrying the boss's daughter and being a good politician. You're just jealous because you didn't think of it before he did.
Forgot to mention at WrestleMania he's going to have the biggest entrance.
He will. Always does.
My opinion of Triple H is his own biggest fan. I love the comment you make about everybody with the book kind of does that for themselves in the past, and there's proof of it. His second biggest fan is Stephanie. His third biggest fan is Vince.
So he won over the most important people. It's the best demographic to win.
I think we don't have to look much farther. Farther's distance. Yeah, much further than the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. He put himself over to be the champ because he thought he could put over Reigns. Vince, you want him to be your guy. Everybody's booing him. Let me win him over. Let me put him over. No, that's not what happened. He started doing Suck It. And getting applause.
I was so excited when he won the belt. Everybody was upset at the Rumble. I was like, this is great. And I do think that he rubs the nose in it, but he's got the dominant position.
It was a perfect opportunity to have a rematch with Brock Lesnar. The Lesnar-Reigns match was pretty good.
Well, you crazy would have to put him over.
It's in Lesnar's contract. He ain't losing to anybody. Oh, but Triple H. That's his last loss. Triple H had no business beating Sting. I was never a big fan of Sting, okay? It was so cool to see him in a WWE ring. It was so cool to see him at WrestleMania to get an entrance. I felt good for the guy. I felt happy for him. It was an overbooked cluster of a match.
But that's what it was supposed to be. It was
Looking
a
back, I wanted a one-on-one match and Sting to go over.
Well, wait a minute. We found out a couple months later, unfortunately, by the way it happened, that Sting would have probably been in no shape to have that match. That whole neck injury thing that he had with Seth Rollins, I don't think that happened in one fell swoop. That was an accumulation of moves, and it was discovered after the buckle bomb. He had spinal stenosis. He couldn't have given you this match that you want. Could they have done something different? Could they have had a classic American-style pro wrestling match? Sure. But come on, dude. You had the NWO and DX still in battle. This is
Nash didn't have his knee.
He didn't have his knee brace. I know. I watched the interview too, laugh on the network for $9.99 a month. But come on. We probably would have won that match, and it turned into, you know, a 90s nostalgia bump for, you know, that didn't warm your cockles a little bit?
No. I love your analogy to Arnold. That was very well done.
Arnold is the greatest human being to ever live, bar none. Except for the whole housekeeper thing. But beyond that,
not too bad.
No. And Triple H is the Arnold of wrestling. He's done it all. Every kind of gimmick, every kind of style, every kind of match, interview. The dude changes his facial hair. He had that awesome Harley Race thing going for a couple of years. Like, talk about reinvention.
He wants to be the Undertaker. He wants to do what The Undertaker was able to accomplish at WrestleMania. He has one match a year. He goes away. He puts on a great match. He comes back. I look forward to the Undertaker match. Triple H wants to be that. He wants to be Brock Lesnar.
So what's wrong with that?
He's not the Undertaker. He inserts himself into the main event. I've talked to Ron, Aaron, Eric, and Joey about this for weeks. The main event on Raw right now is when Triple H is going to come back and beat up Seth Rollins.
That's fine with me. I'd rather watch him in the main event.
Who's working harder,
than
Triple H?
Freaking Zayn.
Who's working harder right now, Triple H or Jericho? Who the two of you
Triple
had a
H
love
works
fest
out
for?
at 12:30 at night, dude.
And that's wonderful. Who's working harder right now, Jericho and Owens or Triple H?
Jericho. You want to talk about Jericho? Own biggest fan. Jericho goes on his podcast and writes in his book about how he gets drunk off of Grey Goose and acts like an idiot and thinks that it's cool because getting drunk and being mean to people is a cool thing to do. You want to talk about biggest fan? Jericho's worried about his podcast and his band and his iTunes hits and his DDP yoga. That is it. So if you're going to cast aspersions about guilt, Jericho's just as guilty as Triple H. It just so happens Triple H has a higher position than him in the industry.
Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho are working very hard right now with that title. In my opinion, I think they are.
Which is wrong, but go ahead.
But the main event storyline right now is Paul, Stephanie, and Seth. And Seth is playing that tweener role right now, too. I always go back to everything.
Seth isn't a tweener, he's a face.
Everything. Well, let him be a face.
They're not booking him.
Let him be a face.
It's going to be Seth and Triple H at Mania. You okay with that?
We'll talk about that later.
Ron, I can't even.
Well, I think this isn't even so much about Triple H, but I think one of the big issues with the Triple H looming over everything is that it's kind of stuck Seth Rollins in one place. Like, because he doesn't have a character right now, really.
No.
Like, he's the third guy in this Kevin Owens championship story. It's about Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho, and Seth Rollins just happens to be the opponent. It's not really about Seth, because Seth is waiting for Triple H to come back.
So I don't think a title needs to be involved in that storyline, then. It's a grudge match. You don't need the championship. Let Kevin elevate. Hopefully they keep the strap on him. Championship until Devitt comes back. I mean, I'm sorry, Finn Balor. I was not trying to sound like an internet. I really wasn't. Yeah, let him wear it, get a good long reign in, and then have that feud. I know it's like a placeholder thing since he got hurt at SummerSlam, but you don't need that championship aspect of it.
Balor's going to win the Rumble.
He's not going to be back in time.
He's going to win the Rumble.
He's not going to be back in time.
He's going to come in at 30.
I'll bet you 2 mortgage payments that this does not happen.
Got a lot of mortgage payments getting...
Write this down.
There's a lot of money on the line here.
A lot of mortgage payments getting bandied about.
I could use somebody to pay my
mortgage. We could talk
about
about Triple H forever.
Yeah.
He's polarizing. He's an interesting topic.
Yes,
if one more comment, if I may. I've brought up Punk. I've brought up Daniel Bryan. I love that H put him over in that match.
The Mania 30?
And that's a very good match.
That dude was there. Go ahead.
With weren't they Bruiser Brody boots?
They were.
Yes. So, I think about it a lot. If Punk didn't quit, the storyline was H and Punk. What would have happened in that match? Don't answer.
I don't think we need to. Who knows? Maybe they would have done something different.
Yeah, we'll never know.
Maybe the NWO would have came out.
Perhaps.
Well, transitioning out of Triple H, one of his babies right now, and this is one of the things I respect most about Triple H, how much he loves the pro wrestling business, how much he wants to try to stay true to like the roots of it and try to bring it into like the next generation of wrestling. He introduced the Cruiserweight Classic. This was something that he wanted to do. He brought in guys from all over the globe. Now they're on Raw. I love the Cruiserweight Classic itself. I've had some stops and starts with how I feel about how they're presenting it on Raw. This is something you mentioned to me that you don't like it as much as a lot of the other fans seem to. So what is it about the Cruiserweight division? First of all, did you enjoy the Cruiserweight Classic?
No.
You didn't enjoy the classic.
I still can't believe Brian Kendrick did the burning hammer and got away with it. He probably got yelled at backstage. But the idea of a cruiserweight title, I think everybody on the show should want to win the main title. The cruiserweight title's not the main title. I don't get excited about it. We've talked about moves over 2 shows now. Do I enjoy some of their moves? Absolutely. Anytime I could see a shooting star press, which goes back to sharing tapes and my cousin showing me a Super J Cup with Hayabusa and Jushin Thunder Liger and the exchange in the beginning with Hayabusa's coat on, leading to a shooting star press. I mentioned briefly that I love watching through the fuzz Mark Marrow do a shooting star press. I think it was Gold Dust. But I'm not a fan of the title, the cruiserweight title. They should want to right now beat Kevin Owens. I loved when Jeff Jarrett. I hate Jeff Jarrett.
Your favorite.
I loved when Jeff Hardy, when he was coming up, and they let him wrestle H. I give H some credit there. I enjoyed some of that stuff. One of the little guys was going up. I liked when they gave Rey Mysterio the belt as an ode to Eddie, but I enjoyed when Mysterio had the belt. He wasn't booked well.
Vince never wanted him to have that title.
And then he paid Vicky for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I do not like what they're doing with the cruiserweights. I thought where you were going with the question, too. Right now, I don't like what they're doing with NXT. The product that you learned to love, Vince brought brought all the way Paul's guys. I think Taz talked about it on his podcast. They had a great opportunity when H helped Kevin Owens to have an NXT. I don't want to use the word invasion because it was poorly booked. But to have an NXT angle, you stole all of my good guys. I wanted Owens to win the title. I'll show you how good we really are.
Yeah, that's actually where I thought it was ultimately going. So you're almost looking at the cruiserweights as like the cruiserweight title is just a thing for some guys to do on the show because we don't have anything else for them almost.
They're never going to be champion.
Right.
Well, what if it's a stepping stone? Because in 1997, you wouldn't have thought Mysterio or Guerrero would have been world champion, or Benoit, and they were all earmarked for a cruiserweight division type thing. Jericho.
Did any of them hold the lightweight championship that Vince introduced?
That Vince introduced? No.
I think Malenko had it.
Malenko
Didn't Matt Hardy have it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Broken Matt?
That's another gee whiz.
Well, you mentioned NXT, and like you said, NXT, what I fell in love with 2 years ago, that's not what NXT is anymore.
Nope.
It's not.
And NXT, a lot of weeks, I watch it, I'm like, well, nothing happened.
I think if some of the NXT wrestlers walked in right now, and I would like to hear Paul's opinion on the cruiserweights as well, but if someone from NXT walked in right now, I would have no idea.
Yeah.
They'd be bigger than me and you.
Yeah.
But I would have no idea if they walked in, and I don't like that.
Same here. So, Paul, your thoughts on the Cruiserweight Classic and the Cruiserweight Division?
I really like the Cruiserweight Classic. Again, I endeavor to find as much wrestling as I possibly can, and so to see some Akira Tozawa, who I'd only read about. I don't watch Dragon Gate. I've been following Ibushi for a few years, so I was so excited to see how I'd be presented under the WWE lens. T.J. Perkins, I've been watching for years. He was doing the whole TNA Suicide Manic gimmick. I was oddly excited for Jack Gallagher. I see your point. I think if we really want to get philosophical and be detail-oriented, which we should be, if we're booking pro wrestling, you have a point. But wrestling evolves. Eddie Guerrero evolved from a cruiserweight. You spoke about your love of Benoit. Wild Pegasus was a junior heavyweight in New Japan who evolved into the heavyweight, Chris Benoit. So I think that it's something temporary. I think it's okay. It's viable. I think that they say, if you're not in this to win the big one, you shouldn't be in it. And yet, they're still establishing the division. Maybe down the line they do a cruiserweight competitor against a heavyweight competitor, a cruiserweight competitor against a universal champion, and hopefully that'll elevate the whole aspect of cruiserweight perspectives. But they're trying to appeal to you. They're trying to get Mr. Moveset, Mr. I'm a Mark 5-star. They're trying to, and you're nitpicking it. I'm not saying they got the best cruiserweights possible. There's a couple guys on there, yeesh. I'm wondering how this guy got signed and that guy didn't. But applaud their effort, would you?
How about this idea?
Go for it.
We just talked about how Vince saw money in the NXT guys. What if, and now the current group of NXT guys, if they walked in right now, I wouldn't know them. What if Vince and Paul put those cruiserweights in NXT and they went for the NXT title?
Well,
I would be cool with that.
That goes to our
and you would say, hey, did you see some of those moves that were on NXT? No, but I'll go back and watch it.
That goes to the flawed business concept of what NXT has devolved into being. It was supposed to be an evolutionary kind of thing, and it's devolved. So them going for the NXT title would totally devalue the NXT title, and I don't think your boy Paul would be having any of that. That's why I think that's happening the way it is.
Yeah, the one real issue I have with the cruiserweights is they changed the ring. They changed to the purple.
Yeah,
ropes.
they changed the turnbuckles. Nobody's talking. The WW is purple.
Mm-hmm.
Good for them.
They put the cruiserweight, on the LED board. They make it look like, okay, you're on Raw, but you're still your own little thing on Raw.
I think that'll go away.
Yeah, they need to be integrated into the overall roster.
In due time, give it 6 to 8 months. These kinds of things never stick. And Vince changes his mind based on what he had for breakfast.
True.
None of this is going to stick. I see your point. I do see your point.
It's JV.
I totally get that, but the ropes and the color, it matches your shirt.
The greatest shirt ever.
The greatest shirt I've ever seen. And I'm wearing a pretty swanky shirt today.
The guys doing the ring must hate
they
the concept.
I've heard that from live events, you can see the disdain as they're taping it over.
All sweaty.
Just the disgruntled workforce out there.
I
Let's
figured
pop
they would
to the
just
workers fixing the ring.
Yeah, man. WWE ring crew, hats off to you.
You delved a little bit into the flawed NXT business model. This is something I really wanted to hear you talk more about, because I know you have an issue with it. It's probably some similar things that I've said about it, but what are your thoughts on the NXT model? It is no longer truly a developmental...
It's not, and it's a shame. I can't take credit for the analogy. Dave Meltzer has been saying this for months, and it's the truth. If you are a playoff contending baseball team, and you're going for the playoffs, and you've got
Playoffs?
Playoffs, that's a Philly joke. Our international listeners wouldn't get that joke. If you're building your squad for a playoff run, and you've got your best AAA prospect hitting 400, why aren't you going to bring him up? Are you going to leave him down there because the AAA squad is going for the AAA championship? Mm-hmm. You get an extra hot dog and soda down, and you need to bring those people up. Half of that roster has no business being termed developmental. Hideo Itami just got dropped on his head by some greenhorn. Okay, so he's out of action. Hideo Itami should have been up from the get-go. This poor guy spent 2 years getting surgeries, and he's 36 years old with a lot of mileage on his body, and now he's out for another indeterminate amount of months. Shinsuke Nakamura, Bryan Danielson called him the best wrestler in the world 3 years ago. If you've seen his work, you know. What are they going to teach him down there? How to sell towards camera A? Austin Aries, my boy. What is he possibly going to learn from wrestling Riddick friggin' Moss in front of 400 people in Port St. Lucie, where we went for spring training for New College? Samoa Joe was wrestling William Regal 15 years ago. Why are these guys down there? Okay? You don't have... They are keeping their true money makers, because I believe they could draw with some of these guys, in this cyclical kind of hamster wheel, and it's not changing, and I'm kind of getting nervous. Well, again, why is Samoa Joe main eventing in front of 400 people?
the organic piece, because Vince wants to see Braun Strowman against the Big Show and Big Cass.
If you market them correctly, listen, you want a fantasy book so badly. You want to put the pop on everybody and the shine on some of the NXT people. You have Samoa Joe come through the crowd and muscle bust Brock Lesnar. Because guess what? He's the only guy on either of those two rosters that you will viably buy as a contender for Brock Lesnar. And then, in my fantasy booking realm, you actually have those two team up, Brock and Samoa Joe. That's another conversation for a different day. It's a very flawed business model. They're holding their own talent back to appeal to some segment of their fan base that is so minuscule. Granted, that is the fan base that buys tickets and buys their network and stuff, but it's kind of like they're cutting their nose off to spite their face. I've got to watch Apollo Crews again on Raw when there are people who ooze charisma. Shinsuke Nakamura is down in NXT. And I don't have time on Wednesday night to watch NXT. I'm missing a lot of these guys. I just don't have the time. There'd be a lot less fast forwarding on the DVR on Monday Night Raw if those guys were up.
Yeah.
And again, like I said last show, the WWE will never be a work rate promotion, but they could kind of market themselves a little bit differently. And again, they're coloring too much in the lines. And I'm sure that if I were to say this to Paul Levesque, the businessman, and see whatever O that he is, he would tell me all his rationale. But as a wrestling fan, I'm feeling kind of slighted, and I'm nervous for these guys. Are they going to be able to get up and produce, or are they going to be too injured? Are they going to be labeled as, can't work or whatever? Mm-hmm. I don't get it. And why did AJ walk right over the main roster?
Yeah.
Because any of those guys could have done it too. It boggles my mind how what their thought process is.
Yeah, I don't know how they make that decision. And one of the real issues I've had is, again, the product I fell in love with when you had Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Sasha Banks, Charlotte, Becky Lynch, Bayley, who just came up. I'm trying to think of everybody else. Who was it? Tyler Breeze. These were all characters that were developmental to me. A lot is developing your persona, your character, to get over. A lot of now some of it is learning how to work in the ring, but for the most part, if you're on NXT every week, you can work fairly well for the most part. At least you could 2 years ago. I think them bringing in all these established performers, they don't have to invest as much in developing new characters. It's like, we have Shinsuke Nakamura to main event. We have Samoa Joe to main event. We have Austin Aries. These are all established guys that people know from other promotions. They don't have to invest the time in developing new stars down there.
It should be easier for the company as a whole. I look at the arena reports, and they have two touring brands, and sometimes in front of crowds of 250 people, you'll see Patrick Clark from Tough Enough. Yes, this is perfect for Patrick Clark. Leave him down there for 2 years. They couldn't wait.
Do you like his Prince gimmick, by the way?
I haven't seen it. I don't have time. They were so eager to cut ZZ from his $250,000 contract. Why not? He's 19. Let the guy sit in developmental where he's supposed to be for like 3 years. That's the guy who should be in there for 3 years. Not all these other really good. Sami Zayn was down there forever. He comes up on his first match on Raw. He blows his shoulder out. Yeah. Like, my goodness. Yeah. That poor guy. And I felt awful for him. They spent all the time, they put the NXT championship on Neville. That guy, that poor fella, is up here now, and it's like they want to give him a Mighty Mouse gimmick. Right. I get the feeling when he comes out and he has the cape, I get the feeling that he's so uncomfortable, he can't wait to get that cape off. He doesn't take it off as part of the show. It's like, get this off of me. I just want to go and work.
I like him.
I do too. But look what they've done. Look at the taste that he leaves in your mouth because of the way they present him. Yeah. Hopefully, he's in that 10-man tag match at Survivor Series. Get him a payday, man.
Do you think that's why they teamed Tim and Sammy back up?
Oh, absolutely. It's just an excuse to get them on TV. And those guys shouldn't be having excuses made for them. They're good wrestlers, workers. They should be on there. Titus O'Neil, he's a guy you got to make an excuse to get him on television. Yeah. And I think you could do stuff with him too. NXT really is to me as a wrestling fan, it's a problem. To a business person, again, I'm sure that I would lose the battle.
Yeah, but no, I see your point, and the product is not as good now as it was a couple.
I haven't watched. What do you see now on a Wednesday night that
Nothing. When we talk about it, when we talk about it on this show now, typically what I'll do is I'll run down the topics, let everybody else kind of have their say. I'll throw in my 2 cents. When we talk about NXT, it's me literally saying, okay, these are a few things that happened, and there's no discussion about it. Because there's nothing of significance that happened.
Well, and the title is totally patterned. I believe that Samoa Joe is just signed for a rematch for the title in Toronto. So if he doesn't get it, I'll be like, yes, because maybe he'll get brought up. And if he gets it, I'm going to be like, whatever. And either way, Bobby Roode's going to be the one to get it within the next 2 or 3. So you can see what's coming a mile away. And I am not the least bit compelled to watch that. And I feel really bad for these guys. Austin Aries, he should be the crown jewel of the cruiserweight division. He should be the one around whom they're building it. They want somebody who can be a ring general. He can work his face off around anybody they've got, and he's an NXT.
And he'll never be in the cruiserweight division. I don't foresee that ever happening at all.
You don't see that happening?
I think that they have. So it's another problem with the cruiserweights. I think they look at him as he's above the cruiserweights, so he'll never be with them.
Yeah,
that's the way I view
it's definitely flawed, but they don't look at these guys as, I don't think, as individuals like we are. I think they do look at them as cogs in the machine, and they are a business first and foremost. So it's kind of, it depends on how you look at it. We do get a little too emotional. I'm sweating over here like a stuck pig because you got me so
worked up.
Yeah.
So we're down to our last few minutes here. Time really got away this time. Do you think you can fantasy book Mania?
I think I could.
Okay.
I could give you a few matches. The human brain's only supposed to remember 5 things. And I already gave you The Rock and Brock. I think that John Cena will wrestle The Undertaker.
Wait, time out. You think this is actually going to happen?
Yes.
Have you heard recent reports on Undertaker?
Yes.
He's walking on crutches?
No.
Yeah.
There are a couple of pictures surfaced of him on. There's the Andre crutches. He's supposedly not in good shape. I'm just telling you what I read. It's on the internet. It must be true.
Yeah, I saw a couple pictures.
Did you see the pictures? Is he on the braced crutches?
They're like the handle crutches, I feel like. They might have had like the little brace on.
Wow.
There's another picture of somebody.
No good.
You could see the crutches like in the car behind them.
Keep going with your fantasy book in there, Hoss.
I do not think his match with Shane was his last match. He took his gloves off. I do not think that was his last match. I think he wants to put Cena over.
Did you talk to him? Do you call him Mark like you call Triple H Paul? Hey, Mark.
It was not Mark's last match.
I called Paulie on the phone. Yeah.
You're a piece of work.
I think we will see Triple H and Seth. I do think we will get that. I think we are going to see AJ defending the title.
You think he holds it till then?
I do.
Against whom? Who's he defending?
Nakamura.
Have you seen any of their New Japan matches?
I just saw one of them. I didn't see
I've
enough.
Seen one.
It was
the last one.
So it was the Tokyo Dome show this year. It was an incredible match.
Yeah.
I sound like such a know-it-all.
Was that the beginning of the year?
January 4th. The New
That's
Japan
still the match of the year, right?
So far,
yeah,
it was a pretty darn good match. And it's funny because they both gave their notice before they went to the ring, and then Doc and Carl gave their notice too on the way to the ring. So yeah, they all had that match January 4th at the Tokyo Dome. But that was a really good match. I'd like to see that on a WrestleMania stage, sure.
That'd be awesome.
And I don't know what they're going to do with the Universal title, so I'm giving you 4 matches, and that's all.
Is Balor going to be back before then?
I said that earlier in the show. Thank you.
He'll be back by Mania.
No, you said Rumble.
He's going to win the Rumble.
No, he's not.
For his match to get his belt back. But that would make Owens and AJ keep the belts the whole time, and that's not going to happen. But for the sake of our discussion, I will give you Balor Owens.
Okay, again, and I'm not a fantasy booking fan. I get sucked into this hook, line, and sinker.
He's done it 4 times tonight.
It's great how steadfast I am.
You can speak things into existence.
If, let's say Balor comes back between the Rumble and Mania, I've always loved, and I don't do it anymore, the rainy day booking concept of that February and March show used to be the Elimination Chamber. If they could somehow sneak, whoever the Rumble winner is, and then Balor comes back, and it's my belt, and somehow he could win it back that way, That'd be pretty neat. I always loved the Elimination Chamber. They used it as whoever won the Rumble, the other brand got the 6 competitors in the Elimination Chamber. I thought that was a great rainy day booking. Who knows? We'll see.
I'll give you one more.
Okay.
I think 2 of your favorites from the old NXT. I think Cass and Enzo will get the title at Mania.
Will the New Day still have it?
No. They're going to beat Demolition, and then they'll lose to somebody.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I never thought they'd get there, but the fact that they're bringing up Demolition, they would have never brought up Demolition if they weren't going to have them beat that record.
Right. I think the WrestleMania story will be Cass and Enzo getting the title. They've never had the belt at NXT. And the hot tag to Cass is a good WrestleMania story to tell.
Yeah, it is. It is a great hot tag. Looks like we're out of time. That hour breezed by. I look forward to having you guys back in here again. Hopefully we do this on maybe a semi-regular basis if you're interested.
Yeah, Ron, thanks for having us, and Paul, thanks for coming.
Yeah, it was a pleasure having both of you. I look forward to working with you again in the future. For Paul Carboni, for Joe Lafferty, I am Ron Pashery, and we will see you next time. That was a great time.
They talking all of they hop on the top rope, by the land with his elbow. Got him now, put him down right now, hit him with the palm handle. Tuning up the band, y'all don't understand. Fist of Superman, it's a SummerSlam. Here we go again. Fans marking man, I hate my balls. Shut the Vince McMahon, it ain't safe to land off the cell. Fans love it, ain't hard to tell. Talking madness, awesome. Well, what I'm cooking, man, y'all off the smell.